right, let's get right into it. Today, we're tackling this idea.
Oh, this is a fun one.
Is monogamy for betas?
Mm.
We hear that a lot online.
Right.
The guys who commit are settling because they can't handle the alpha lifestyle.
Yeah.
So we're going to use evolutionary psychology to break down this question
Okay.
and see if there's any scientific truth to it.
I think even before we get into the monogamy question, we should probably start by defining some terms.
Yeah, good point.
Because like beta, that's a word that gets thrown around a lot online.
For sure.
And it doesn't really have the same meaning in scientific circles.
Right. It's like they took this concept and kind of twisted it to fit their narrative.
Exactly.
So yeah, let's clarify what evolutionary psychology actually says about human mating and relationships.
Sounds good.
Because like you said, beta, it doesn't really have a scientific basis.
Right. It's much more complex than that.
And a lot of the research that you see online from these communities, it's like they're either misinterpreting it or taking it out of context.
Right.
Or it's outdated research.
Exactly.
Like, for example, that dual mating strategy hypothesis.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that women are hardwired to look for, like the alpha males for the good genes, but then they settle for beta providers.
Yes, classic.
It's a popular idea in these online communities.
It is.
But science has kind of moved on.
Yeah, that hypothesis has been challenged a lot in recent years.
Yeah, and in doing the research for this deep dive, I was looking into some of those studies.
Yeah.
And either they were debunked or they found that the effects were super small.
Yeah, and even the whole idea of like one alpha male at the top of the hierarchy.
Right.
Like a lot of research is suggesting that's not really how it works.
It's much more fluid than that.
Yeah, attractiveness and like what we consider high value.
Right.
It depends on the situation.
Right.
Like what might make you an alpha in one context might not be as helpful in another one.
Like we were talking about before the show.
Yeah.
That story about Tavon White.
Oh, yeah, the guy.
Who was running a prison gang from inside.
Oh, gosh.
And fathered children with multiple guards.
Yeah, I remember that.
And people hold him up as this example of an alpha.
Oh, yeah.
But would you really say he's more successful than someone like, I don't know, Ricardo Kaká?
I love that comparison.
Like wildly successful, attractive soccer star who's monogamous.
Right.
So it makes you think, what does alpha even mean?
Right.
How do we define success?
Exactly. And I think
that's not just about how many partners you have or how dominant you are.
Definitely not.
There's more to life than that.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads us to this question of like, how should we define success? Is it just about sexual conquests, like some of these communities say?
Right.
Or is it about something more?
Yeah. I mean, when you think about like the things that actually make for a good life.
Yeah.
Strong relationships, personal growth, making a positive impact. Those things don't necessarily align with that alpha image.
Not at all.
And something else I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
The research actually shows that men and women are pretty much equally interested in long-term relationships.
Yeah. They both want that.
So this idea that men who choose monogamy are somehow settling, it doesn't really hold up.
It really doesn't.
It's like they forget that women have a say in the matter.
Right. Women get to choose too.
Exactly. And I think it's important to note that high mate value is actually linked to what's called a slow life history strategy.
Right.
Which means that things like honesty, trustworthiness, being a good provider.
Yes, all the good stuff.
The things that make a good partner.
Yeah.
Those are actually seen as attractive.
Exactly.
So in a way, choosing monogamy and investing in a relationship could actually boost your perceived mate value.
It really could.
It flips the script on that whole nice guys finish last thing.
It really does.
It's more like nice guys finish first.
And maybe get to have grandkids.
Exactly. And that makes me think about all this talk about fast versus slow life history strategies.
Oh, yeah.
Like this idea that promiscuity automatically leads to more kids.
Yeah, more partners, more kids.
Isn't that also kind of a misconception?
It is. There's research that says long-term relationships actually lead to more offspring in the long run.
That's counterintuitive.
It is at first. But if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Two invested parents committed to their kids' success.
Yeah.
That gives the kids a way better chance of surviving.
Right. So it's not just about having a ton of kids.
Yeah.
It's about making sure they thrive.
Exactly. Quality over quantity.
Makes sense.
And I think that's a good place to transition to the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
Where we'll look at individual differences in mating preferences.
All right, let's unpack that.
So we've been talking about these general trends in mating behavior, but it's super important to remember.
Yeah.
Human behavior is complex.
Yeah, totally.
It's not like every guy is out there trying to have as many partners as possible.
Right. Like it's not just all men want this.
Exactly.
Or all women want that.
It's not that simple.
So what are some of the things that might make someone prefer short-term flings versus long-term commitment?
So one key factor is something called sociosexuality.
Okay.
Which basically measures how open someone is to casual sex.
Okay.
And research shows that it exists on a spectrum. Some people are totally fine with casual sex.
Yeah.
Others only want to have sex in a committed relationship.
Right. So some people are just more inclined towards monogamy than others. But does that mean they're low value?
No, not at all.
Based on that whole alpha-beta thing.
Remember, mate value only explains a small part of why people have different sociosexualities.
Okay, so it's not just about looks or status.
It's more about what you value in a relationship.
Right, like some high-value people might prefer committed relationships.
Exactly.
And some low-value people might be all about casual flings.
Exactly. It's way more nuanced.
So many factors.
Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff.
Play into it.
Like personality, for example.
Okay.
People who are high in agreeableness, you know, empathetic, cooperative.
The nice ones.
Yeah, they tend to be more relationship-oriented.
Makes sense.
But then people high in extroversion might be more drawn to novelty and excitement.
They like to shake things up.
Right, and that could lead them to explore short-term relationships.
So someone who's more introverted and values deep connection, they might naturally do better in a monogamous relationship.
They might.
But someone who's super social and craves constant stimulation, they might feel stifled in that kind of setting.
That's a good way to put it.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Absolutely. Although we have to remember people are complex.
Right.
There are always exceptions.
Of course.
But yeah, personality traits definitely impact relationship preferences.
What about our experiences?
Oh, for sure.
Do those affect how we view relationships?
Absolutely. Our past relationships, our family dynamics growing up, even cultural influences. All those things shape our beliefs about love and commitment.
Okay.
Like if you grew up seeing a healthy, loving marriage, you might be more drawn to monogamy.
Makes sense.
But if you've experienced infidelity or divorce,
right,
you might be more hesitant to commit.
Yeah, like your relationship history becomes part of how you see love and commitment.
Exactly. So trying to boil it all down to alphas and betas.
Right.
It just oversimplifies things.
Right, it's simple.
Doesn't do justice to how diverse human experiences are.
It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly. You're always going to have pieces that don't fit.
And that brings us back to how we define status and success. Because we've seen that those alpha traits, aggression, dominance, focusing on short-term conquests. They don't always lead to real success or fulfillment.
Like those qualities we talked about before. That are linked to a slow life history strategy. Right.
Honesty, trustworthiness, the ability to form strong bonds.
The good stuff.
Exactly. Those are actually better predictors of social status.
Across cultures.
Yeah. It's not about being an alpha.
So maybe instead of asking, is monogamy for betas? We should be asking, what does it really mean to be a high-value person?
I love that reframing.
And maybe those who focus on building strong relationships, investing in personal growth, maybe they're the ones playing the long game.
Maybe they are.
When it comes to success and fulfillment.
Interesting thought.
We've talked about a lot here.
Yeah.
Challenging the alpha-beta thing, individual differences, personality experiences.
Right.
But where does all this leave us?
Good question. What's the takeaway for someone trying to figure out this whole love and relationships thing?
Well, I think the key takeaway is that there's no one right way to do it. Monogamy isn't inherently better or worse than other relationship styles.
Right. It's not a competition.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you, what aligns with your values, and what lets you build a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
So it's less about following some predetermined script. And more about knowing yourself.
Exactly.
And understanding what you really want.
It's about knowing your strengths, acknowledging your needs, and choosing partners who complement and support you.
That makes sense.
Which brings us to another interesting point. The long-term consequences of our relationship choices.
Ooh, getting philosophical now.
Right. And the legacy we want to leave behind.
Okay, I'm ready for that. Let's go to the final part of our deep dive. So we're back for the last part of our deep dive.
Right.
And we've really challenged some of those common ideas about monogamy.
Explore this whole idea of mate value.
Right.
But I want to hear your thoughts on the long-term consequences of different relationship choices.
Interesting.
Like, what kind of legacy do different approaches leave behind?
It's interesting to think about that, right?
Yeah.
Because different life history strategies, whether it's that fast approach focused on short-term relationships or the slow one focused on long-term.
Yeah.
They each come with their own trade-offs.
Okay.
And it's not just about, like, who has the most partners or even the most kids.
It's bigger than that.
It's really about the overall quality of your life and the impact you have on the people around you.
So it's not just like more partners equals more success.
No, not at all.
It's more nuanced.
Yeah, it's about understanding how your choices shape your whole life.
I see.
Like someone who really prioritizes that fast life history strategy, they might have a lot of excitement, variety in their relationships.
But they also might miss out on that deep connection and stability that comes with a committed long-term partnership.
They might be so focused on the next exciting thing that they don't build anything lasting.
Exactly. And those choices, they can have consequences in other areas too.
Like what?
Like maybe their career or their finances.
Makes sense.
If you're always chasing that immediate gratification instead of thinking long-term.
It's like that marshmallow test, but with relationships.
I love that.
Right? Like, do you go for that instant gratification of a fling?
Yeah.
Or can you wait and build something deeper?
Such a good analogy. And you know these choices, they build up over time, shaping who you become and how you impact the world.
I see.
So someone who embraces that slow life history strategy, investing in personal growth, building a strong social network, focusing on long-term goals, they might end up with different outcomes.
In what way?
Maybe they have fewer partners, but their connections are deeper, more meaningful. Maybe they find more fulfillment in their career or make a real difference in their community.
So it's not about saying one strategy is better.
Right.
It's about recognizing they both have consequences.
Exactly.
And choosing the path that fits with your goals.
Yeah, like what do you want out of life?
Big questions.
Huge. And it's about asking yourself some tough questions too. Like, what kind of person do you want to be? What impact do you want to make? What legacy do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, those are big ones.
They really are.
I think that's a great place to wrap up this deep dive.
Good stuff.
We've really explored the science of monogamy.
We did.
Debunked some of those myths out there.
For sure.
Even talked about what it means to live a good life.
Right, because ultimately the choice is yours.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to relationships.
Just different paths leading to different places.
I think the main takeaway here is that monogamy isn't a sign of weakness or low value. It can be a really successful strategy for both having kids and having a fulfilling life.
And for some people, it might be the path to the most happiness.
It might be.
So to everyone listening, think about your long-term goals, your values, the kind of person you want to be.
Right.
Then make choices that fit with that vision.
That's it.
Whether it's monogamy, polyamory, something else entirely.
Yeah.
The most important thing is that it feels right for you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.